Agile is everywhere these days, but are we really practicing it or just throwing around buzzwords? We've all heard the terms like sprint, standups, retrospectives. But what if I told you that some teams are doing these things without actually being agile? Today, I'm going to walk you through how to spot when your team or organization is doing agile without actually being agile and how to fix it. So first of all, let's look at the problems caused by fake agile, the big issue. Many organizations think that they're agile just because they've implemented some framework, Scrum, Kanban, or something similar, but they don't actually embrace the core principles of agile. This is what I mean by doing agile instead of being agile. Take this example. Teams work in 2-week sprints, hold stand-ups, and do retrospectives. But in reality, everything is planned months in advance. On the face of it, great, looks agile, but there's no room to adapt based on feedback. Sprints should be a time for iteration and learning, not just mini waterfalls where you stick to the original plan no matter what. Is it sounding familiar? Because the point of a retro is to continuously improve. You're not just sharing your problems, you're working to resolving them, swarming on problems, unblocking issues. So that's some of the examples of fake agile. And unfortunately, this fake agile culture is what leads some leaders to dismiss agile as a useless buzzword. It also leads to lots of LinkedIn posts claiming that agile is dead. All right. So what can you do to avoid falling into this trap? One of the things that organizations do is use a lot of fake agile, and they use a lot of buzzwords and phrases which are related to agile, which make you think we're doing agile, but we're not. So let's have a look at some examples of that. The first example is we work in 2-week sprints. Sounds great, but the reality is that work is crammed into time boxes. Teams sprint towards deadlines and then nothing. There's no feedback, no iteration, just another sprint. What's missing? Sprints are meant to create a rhythm for continuous delivery and learning and adaptation. But when feedback loops are skipped and work is treated as done just because the sprint has ended, teams fall into mini waterfall cycles, just doing sprint after sprint towards a particular goal, which, like I said, has been potentially planned for months ahead. So as an example of this, the team might complete a logo redesign in one sprint, but there's no user testing, there's no feedback loop, there's no metrics to evaluate success, but they call it done. A month later, they find users are dropping off because the new login experience is confusing. Now, real Agile will use a sprint to build, validate, and iterate, not just ship. The work isn't done until feedback shapes the next step. The next phrase, our Scrum Master keeps us on track. Again, on the face of it, sounds great, but in reality, Scrum Masters are misunderstood and they're treated like traditional project managers. They assign tasks, they track progress, they report to leadership, but they don't focus on what they should be doing, which is enabling and coaching the team. So what's missing? A true Scrum Master is a servant leader. They support the team in removing blockers, fostering collaboration, and ensuring the team has everything they need to succeed. They should create an environment where the team can self-organize, take ownership, and continually improve. The Scrum Master doesn't control, but instead empowers. They foster an environment of self-organization, encouraging collaboration, and removing barriers. Their job is to ensure that the team thrives and grows, but not to micromanage. Retros happen, but they're very surface level. The same issues come up over and over again, and no action is taken. Eventually, people just stop engaging because they know nothing's going to change. And the purpose of a retro isn't just to talk about improvement, it's to actually create improvement. This requires psychological safety within a team, honest reflection, and actual follow-through. An example of poor practice in retros is a team that consistently raises the issue of unclear requirements. Every retro, someone mentions it, but nothing happens. This team is still building features with vague specs and bugs are piling up. Does this sound familiar? Now, real Agile, retros should drive real observable changes in how the team works. If nothing changes, nothing improves. All right, let's do one more. We did 60 story points last sprint. Great job. The reality, in fake Agile, teams are measured by velocity, pushed to increase it, and then praised for hitting these arbitrary numbers. Story points become a goal instead of a tool. Velocity is meant to be a forecasting aid, not a performance metric. When teams are judged by how many points they deliver, they may inflate estimates. They might prioritize easy wins. They might game the system, and who loses? The user who loses, and ultimately the organization loses. For example, a team might start padding estimates to appear more productive. They might end up avoiding work which is difficult, but is important, like refactoring a core component or talking to users. Now, business stakeholders might be happy because the numbers are great, the velocity is great, but they might be puzzled as well. Why aren't users loving the product? So in real Agile, the true measure of progress is value delivered to the customer and not how many points you got through in Jira. Agile isn't about following processes, it's about delivering value, learning and adapting. The key principles of Agile are focused on empowering teams, iterative development, and customer collaboration. High-performing teams challenge Agile jargon and focus on outcomes instead. Now, a really good example of this is Spotify's squad model. Spotify initially followed a traditional Scrum, but they found that the rigid sprint structures and predefined roles, such as Scrum Masters and product owners, weren't helping them scale or innovate. Teams were following Agile rituals, but they felt constrained. Again, fake Agile was in place at that point. So they challenged Agile jargon. Instead of forcing all the teams into scrums, they created autonomous squads that could choose their own ways of working. They moved away from fixed sprint planning and focused on continuous delivery of valuable features. They also encouraged guilds and tribes, allowing knowledge sharing without focusing on the processes within teams. By prioritizing customer outcomes over adherence to Agile, Spotify accelerated innovation and built one of the most scalable and adaptable engineering cultures in tech. High-performing teams don't just follow Scrum because it's Agile. They modify frameworks to suit their context and maximize effectiveness. So having listened to all that, are you actually Agile or are you just saying you are? Agile, it's a mindset and a way of working that puts value delivery and continuous improvement at the heart of everything. The real test of whether your team is truly Agile is simple. Does your team use Agile to improve? Or are you just following the Agile processes without questioning whether they're working? If you ever found yourself obsessing over story points, ticking off ceremonies, or feeling pressure to keep up with Agile jargon, it's time to step back and ask yourself, are we achieving meaningful outcomes, or are we just doing Agile for the sake of Agile? Agile was never meant to be about ticking boxes or speaking in buzzwords. It's all about delivering customer values, adapting to change, and learning from every sprint. If your team is stuck in a cycle of jargon with no real results, it's time for a change. Stop chasing buzzwords and start chasing results. True agility is about delivering valuable outcomes for your customers and empowering your team to continuously improve. It's not about adopting the latest trend or following every Agile ritual. It's about ensuring that your processes are genuine and help you move forward. So ask yourself, are you really Agile or are you just saying you are?